Something absolutely massive is racing through space, heading straight for the Earth. It's roughly the size of the Empire State Building and as dark as night. Its name? Apophis, named after the Egyptian god of death and darkness. You probably heard about it. But what if Apophis isn't just an asteroid? What if it triggers one or even several of the events prophesied in Revelation? The mountain cast into the sea, or the star called Wormwood? Or what if it or another asteroid is the harbinger of the trumpet judgments of Revelation 8? Or what if it doesn't hit the Earth at all? It still may trigger Revelation-type events. We'll talk about that as well. This is Bible teacher Nelson Walters, and if that's true about Apophis, and since we know the date of Apophis's next visit, well, that may give us a sense of the biblical timeline. This isn't just wild-eyed speculation. It's a conversation started by the late Thomas Horn that has just electrified the whole world of Bible prophecy watchers, astronomers, and everyday believers alike. And when we think about how that event, only 4 years from now, aligns with the biblical prophecies that we've already seen, like modern rebirth of Israel in 48, the rise of global hostility toward the Jewish people, and the potential dividing of the land against God's will, maybe even this year, well, that timetable then seems eerily close. But our first question might be, should we even speculate about this possibility? Isn't that going against no one knowing the day or the hour? Well, Jesus commands us to watch for signs, and that command isn't optional. It's straight from Mark 13:37. What I say to you, I say to all. Watch. What is watching other than seeing a potential biblical prophetic fulfillment on the horizon, like Apophis, and then watching to see if that fulfillment comes true? But because this event comes with a specific date and time, Friday the 13th of April 2029, many say, hey, whoa. No one knows the day or the hour. Let's not go there. As if we can never know, that it will always be a mystery. No one knows the day or hour is a quote from Matthew 24:36. But what almost no one realizes is Jesus clarified his statement there twice in the rest of the Olivet Discourse, Matthew 24 and 25. Literally minutes after he said no one knows the day or the hour, he said this in Matthew 24:42. Therefore keep watch, because you do not know the day on which your Lord is coming. And in Matthew 25:13, he said, therefore keep watch, because you do not know the day or the hour. So Jesus linked watching to the fact that we don't know the day or the hour. But when we see certain signs, then we will know, at least the season. So don't get hung up on this asteroid coming on a specific day thing. That is actually what we should expect. So enter Apophis. Discovered on June 19th, 2004, Apophis is a 1,200-foot asteroid, first believed to be harmless. Well, that didn't last long. Its orbit only brought it within 7 million miles of Earth in 2004 and 2013, but the showstopper is coming April 13th, 2029, on Friday the 13th. Yeah, on that date. Apophis is prophesied to swing as close as 20,000 miles from the Earth. That's closer than many of our communication satellites, close enough for it to hit them. NASA initially claimed there was a 3% chance it would strike the Earth, but later declared the probability was, quote, 0. Case closed. Well, not so fast. Enter the late Tom Horn, author of the books The Wormwood Prophecy and The Messenger, both about this asteroid and its links to Bible prophecy. Horn was a visionary man. He made headlines when he announced that Apophis could be the very object described in Revelation 8:10-11, the star burning like a torch that poisons Earth's waters. It's called wormwood, a bitter plant associated with death and judgment. Now, Horn's conviction wasn't just based on wild speculation alone. He claimed to have had a vision from God and pursued the scientific trail. His insider sources at NASA suggested the orbital data that was provided to the public that said there was 0% chance of it hitting was incomplete or misleading. Some astronomers, according to Horn, warned that the asteroid's current trajectory could be influenced by gravitational forces, possibly causing it to hit the Earth in 2029. Now, our governments are not beyond deluding us with false hope to avoid mass panic. So I don't trust the 0% chance estimate at all. In the millions of miles between Apophis and its current position and the Earth, it could be bumped by another asteroid or comet, or it could be nudged by the gravity of a planet or the moon. These effects are something that scientists just can't calculate. And a slight change in direction now could be just enough to cause it to strike the Earth and fulfill the trumpets of Revelation 8 in 2029. And we're going to get to how it would do that in just a second. But it doesn't matter if it hits in 29, it seems. If it threads through a narrow keyhole as it approaches the Earth, it would trigger the Earth's gravity, changing its orbit. It might slam into us 7 years later then, in 2036, on the next near pass by our planet. If Apophis passes through that 600-mile wide span of space, what astronomers call a gravitational keyhole, Earth's gravity could bend its orbit just enough to guarantee a future impact. Even secular astronomers like Neil deGrasse Tyson took note in a now famous interview. Tyson said, if Apophis threads the keyhole in 2029, it will hit us 7 years later in 2036. Let's listen to him. And then after we listen, we'll get back to Revelation and show you how all this relates to the trumpet judgments, not just Wormwood, but all the trumpet judgments.
However, if you did the calculation, you would show that if it hit Earth in the center of the uncertainty range, it would hit the Pacific Ocean 500 kilometers west of Santa Monica. It would plunge into the ocean to a depth of 3 miles. It would explode at that depth, cavitating the ocean in a hole 3 miles wide. Now you have a wall of water 3 miles high. What happens to that wall of water? It just spills back into the hole that was just made, splashes into itself, and rises high again. That first impact creates a tsunami that's 5 stories tall. By the way, this asteroid is the size of the Rose Bowl. Calculations show this will repeat about 40 times. 40 times. 40 tsunamis, one right after another. What's interesting to me is that tsunami would take out the entire west coast of the United States, do $10 trillion in damage. It would make the Indonesian tsunami look like a slightly overflooding puddle.
Remember that line he just told us about tsunamis. We're going to get back to that in just a minute.
So here's what will happen. On April 13th, in the year 2029, that's one orbit away from the 2036 date. It has a 7-year intersection orbit with Earth. On that date, April 13th, which, by the way, is a Friday. April 13th, 2029, this asteroid, named Apophis, named for the Egyptian god of death and darkness. Named, of course, only after we calculated its trajectory to intersect Earth. On Friday the 13th, April 2029, it's the size of the Rose Bowl. It'll get close enough to Earth that it will dip below Earth's communication satellites. It'll be the biggest, closest thing ever to come known to come near Earth. It'll look like just a fast-moving, bright object across the night sky. moving at about, what speed do I give it? Probably around 10 miles per second. That's hauling. That's fast. So here's the catch. Its orbit remains sufficiently uncertain. Let me back up. In the possible range of orbits it could have on that fateful day, there is an interval range where if it threads that keyhole, we call it a keyhole. It's a 600 mile, several hundred mile range. If its orbit goes through that range, Earth's gravity will be just right. Or rather, just wrong. All right? So that it will alter its orbit so that it will hit us 7 years later. So the test is it going to go through the keyhole? So what we really want to do, and in fact one of the plans of NASA's next voyages, is to visit an asteroid. Why not visit the asteroid that has our name on it? The one that's headed this way. Just call Bruce Willis. That's all you got to do. Oh, visit. Yeah. So here's what you do. You go to the asteroid and then you stick LoJack on it, okay? Something where it's telling us where it is to like 1 centimeter per second accuracy, okay? And its velocity and its location with that accuracy. Then you put it back into the equations, you sharpen the orbit, you reduce the uncertainty, and you'll know whether it'll go through the keyhole or not. If it's targeted to go through the keyhole, all you have to do, well, if you're like military generals who know you got like nukes in the silo, you blow the sucker out of the sky. We got those folks. We know who they are. The people want to blow stuff up. Problem here in America is that we're really good at blowing stuff up and less good at knowing where the pieces go afterwards. We're just less good at that. All right? So I don't want to blow up Apophis. Then we have 2 pieces, one headed for New York, one headed for LA. I don't want 2 pieces because we don't know what'll happen when you blow it up. So the kinder, gentler solution would be to nudge it out of harm's way. And all you have to do is nudge it so that it misses the keyhole.
So Tyson's scenario sends chills down your spine, doesn't it? Now here's where prophecy watchers are buzzing. Horn believed that Apophis was the Wormwood of Revelation 8. However, an asteroid of this size might spark all of the first 5 trumpet judgments and not be limited just to Wormwood, as Horn believed. In the Bible, events begin in Revelation 8:5, with an angel taking fire from the altar in heaven, putting it in a censer, and hurling it to the earth. A censer on fire, hitting the earth. Sounds a little bit like an asteroid. There followed lightning and thunder and earthquakes. Exactly what you would expect from an asteroid strike, as you're just going to find out in a minute or so. Then the trumpet judgments follow. The first trumpet hurls ice, blood, and fire on the earth. The second is a flaming mountain into the sea. Wow, that sounds like an asteroid too. The third has a star like a torch that causes a third of the fresh water to be polluted. That's Horn's Wormwood. The fourth dims the sun, moon, and stars by a third. And the fifth, a fallen star, causes the bottomless pit to be opened, releasing smoke and demon locusts who sting those on earth for 5 months. Now, how can all these things be related to a single asteroid, you're probably asking? Nelson, maybe that's a bunch of asteroids. Well, you're on the right track. Well, here's how a single asteroid could conceivably align with all these events. A large asteroid is detected flying toward Earth. Global powers respond with a desperate attempt to break it apart. But this nuclear interception, or deflection, fails, or fragments the asteroid, creating a chain of cascading, catastrophic events that mirror the first 5 trumpet judgments. The pieces of the asteroid strike different regions of the Earth in a staggered fashion, one after another, causing compound natural disasters, not just one. So let's start to look at them. The first trumpet, Revelation 8:7. Hail and fire mixed with blood were hurled down on the earth. As the initial asteroid fragments enter the atmosphere, they superheat and ignite, leading to a meteor storm. As they rain down, airbursts like the Tunguska event, but far larger because they're produced over a very large area, produce shock waves and firestorms. That answers the fire part. But what about the hail and blood? The heat causes evaporation of surface water from oceans, lakes, and moist ground. The ash and dust blasted into the atmosphere from all these meteors seed the clouds, making hail formation more likely. Once the rising plume of vapor cools, it triggers thunderstorms. Remember the lightning and thunder part? Especially around the periphery of the impact zone, including hailstones. You've probably seen hailstones hit the earth during thunderstorms, even in summer. As supercooled raindrops collide, they freeze. Red or bloody precipitation could be mixed in if biological material from the mass casualties was evaporated with the water vapor. And this would cause it to seem as if it was raining blood. All right, so that's the first trumpet. Second trumpet, Revelation 8:8-9. Something like a great mountain burning with fire was thrown into the sea. Well, one large asteroid fragment could impact the ocean very easily. The resulting tsunami is what Tyson was talking about in his talk. This would fulfill Jesus' comment in Luke 21:25-26, also that takes place at the same time. There will be signs in the sun, moon, and stars, and on the earth dismay among the nations, bewildered by the roaring of the sea and the surging of the waves. There's the tsunami. Men will faint from fear and anxiety over what's coming upon the earth because the power of the heavens will be shaken. So something from the heavens will likely cause the surging of the waves. See how this is all fitting together? Third trumpet, which is about Wormwood. A great star blazing like a torch fell on the third of the rivers. So similar fragments could crash inland, likely in a landmass area with dense rivers and networks of water, and it could impact toxic storage sites or maybe even radioactive fallout from our nuclear facilities. Fourth trumpet, celestial darkness, Revelation 8:12. A third of the sun was struck. Cause? Dust and ash from multiple impacts and wildfires would fill the atmosphere, similar to a nuclear winter effect. This one, if an asteroid hits, you can count on this happening. And then there's the fifth trumpet, Revelation 9:1-11. A star was given the key to the shaft of the abyss. The asteroid strike could act as a divine key, unlocking a spiritual dimension, the abyss. Now imagine if a fragment hits CERN. I'm sure that's what you're thinking, and I'm thinking it too. CERN could be the site where the abyss is opened up, and what would emerge from these other dimensions would not be natural, but demonic entities permitted to torment humans. What if Apophis hits the earth mid-April 2029? Nelson, how does this align with the timeline your channel has anticipated? Well, it's kind of close to what we think might happen, but it's about a full year and a half off, full year and a half earlier than we think these things will happen. Now, I'm the first to admit that our theory that we presented on this channel about when Christ returns and when the wrath of God begins, hey, it's just a theory. And we could be absolutely wrong. But April 13th, 2029, the Apophis date does not fall on any special day in the Hebrew calendar. It's Nisan 28. But you might say, what about the Enoch Dead Sea Scrolls calendar? Well, even if it's a different Jewish calendar, the Dead Sea Scrolls calendar is Nisan 24. So neither calendar has an important date on this April 13th date. And it's certainly not Feast of the Lord on any of these calendars. And since we've proved in a recent video that all the seals come before all the trumpets, if this truly is the first through fifth trumpet, then the sixth seal, which is the second coming and rapture, must come before it. So even if this is the first through fifth trumpet, and it doesn't match our theories, it still would be possible from a pre-wrath perspective. So keep that in mind. This could be the trumpet judgments. It would just mean Nelson was wrong. But what if it doesn't hit Earth in 2029? Nelson, you said that would be important. Well, it's almost a certainty that the Antichrist would already be reigning at that point in time. So if the asteroid misses, he might use this to further reinforce his claim that he's God. I have protected the Earth, he might say. So there are lots of possibilities, including another hidden or unknown comet or asteroid hitting in 2030, the exact year that we expect the second coming. Imagine this scenario. You could see the whole world breathing a sigh of relief if Apophis misses, and saying, "Oh, we now have peace and security thanks to the Antichrist," only to have sudden destruction of another asteroid that they didn't see coming a year later. But I bet you're still thinking about what I said earlier. But the seals must all open before a single trumpet or bowl is sounded or poured out. You may not realize that, but this makes only one major rapture theory possible. So click right here to keep watching and discover what Revelation's timeline really is, and why it can only be that way, and what that rapture theory is. Till then, this is Nelson, and I'll see you there.